Do you, Jonas Reed, take this woman? The preacher's voice cracked as the wind howled through the open doors of the church, sweeping dust across the wooden floorboards. The crowd snickered from the pews. Jonas stood stiff as a fence post, hat in hand, face red beneath the desert light streaming through the window. It wasn't supposed to be his wedding. Outside, the sun glared down on Whisper Canyon, the air hot enough to shimmer. Horses stamped their hooves, uneasy. A lone wagon creaked into town, its canvas flapping. When the woman stepped down, the laughter died. She was tall, taller than any man present. Her boots thudded against the boards like drumbeats. Her shoulders filled the doorway. She carried a satchel in one hand and a folded letter in the other. When she looked at Jonas, her eyes were calm, unreadable. The preacher cleared his throat, sweating under his collar. Well, reckon the names got crossed, but the license says Mr. Jonas Reed. Someone coughed a laugh. Guess Jonas ordered himself a mountain. The crowd erupted. Jonas's jaw tightened. He didn't move, didn't speak. The woman, Mae Tallon, stood without a word, her face still as carved stone. Let's just get this done, the preacher muttered, flipping his Bible open. Jonas's hand trembled as he slipped the plain ring onto her finger. The band looked small, almost comical against her hand, calloused strong, scarred in a way that told stories no one dared ask about. The preacher shut his book with a sigh. By the laws of the territory, I now pronounce you man and wife. No applause, just the sound of wind moaning through the doorframe. Mae gave a slow nod, as if accepting a fate she'd already known was coming. Jonas offered his arm because it seemed the right thing to do. She hesitated, then took it gently, her grip careful not to crush his. They walked down the aisle past the staring townsfolk. A man muttered, "Ain't right." Another spat into the dust. Jonas kept walking, his boots heavy against the planks. Outside, the light hit them full force, blinding. The church bell creaked in the dry wind. Jonas looked up at her, his new bride, and tried to speak, but words failed. Mae glanced down at him, her voice low, quiet as thunder before a storm. Didn't mean for this neither. Jonas nodded once. Reckon neither of us did. They stood there for a long moment, the town's laughter echoing behind them, the desert silent before them. Somewhere far off, a hawk cried over the canyon. The storyteller's voice drifts in, low and rough. The sound of splintering wood cracked through the morning air. Mae drove the post-hole digger into the ground again, the handle creaking beneath her grip. Jonas stood by the corral, hat low against the glare, watching her set the fence straight after last night's windstorm. She worked like the desert itself, slow, strong, relentless. The ranch hands leaned against the rail, whispering. Ain't natural, one muttered. Woman that big ought to be in a circus, not swinging tools. Mae didn't look up. She twisted a bent iron latch with her bare hands until it straightened, then set it in place without a word. Jonas tossed a hammer her way. She caught it midair, gentle as catching a bird. You sure you ain't part blacksmith? He asked, half a grin ghosting his face. Used to be, she said, driving the nail home with one clean strike. By noon, the corral stood fixed. The men drifted off, shaking their heads, leaving Jonas and Mae alone in the shimmer of heat. A wind stirred the dry grass. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was steady, the kind that held weight. Jonas poured 2 tin cups of water from the barrel. You work harder than any man I've known. Mae took the cup, drank deep, and stared toward the canyon. Hard work don't talk back. That night, a coyote howled somewhere in the gulch. Jonas woke to the sound of boots on the porch. Mae stood out there, staring into the dark. Her shoulders were tense, her eyes fixed on the far ridgeline. You hear something? He asked from the doorway. She didn't turn. Riders whistle. 3 short, 1 long. Haven't heard that since Colorado. Jonas frowned. Outlaws. She said nothing, but her hand tightened on the railing. The wood creaked on her fingers. Next day, whispers blew through town like tumbleweeds. Someone had found a wagon burned out near the trading road. No tracks left, just hoofprints vanishing into dust. At the saloon, men spoke low about the Galloway gang. They're moving south, one said. Hit 3 towns already. Mae sat at a back table, silent, nursing her coffee. Her gaze flicked up only once when she heard the name Galloway. The room went quiet, like even the piano knew to stop. Jonas met her eyes across the room. He saw something there, fear, maybe, or anger buried deep. But when she stood, the chair legs scraped hard against the floor. Best everyone keep their rifles close, she said. Her voice carried through the saloon, calm but cold. They don't leave witnesses. She walked out into the noon light, her shadow long against the dust. The door swung shut behind her, and the old storyteller's voice rose again. Gunfire cracked through the canyon. Jonas hit the ground behind the trough as glass shattered above his head. The saloon window burst into splinters, the sign swinging loose on one hinge. Out in the open street, 6 riders thundered through the dust, torches in one hand, pistols in the other. Their laughter carried over the wind. Sharp, cruel, certain. Mae was already moving. She stepped out from the barn, long coat flaring in the gust, wagon chain looped around her arm. Firelight painted her face in flickers of red and gold. Stay back, she said over her shoulder. Jonas ignored it. He loaded his rifle, teeth clenched. Ain't in me to hide while my land burns. The lead rider, tall, scar from cheek to jaw, reined in his horse and grinned. Didn't think you'd come back, sister. The name hit the air like a whip crack. Jonas froze. Mae didn't. She walked forward, boots sinking into the dust. Colt, she said low and steady. Still robbing graves and Callan at work? The men laughed, circling. Colt dismounted, flicking his cigarette aside. You left me for dead, Mae. Now I'm here to finish the family business. Mae's eyes didn't waver. You finished that when you shot our brother. Colt's grin vanished. His hand went to his gun. The first shot split the silence. Mae's chain whipped forward, striking his wrist. The revolver flew, clattering into the dirt. The other riders opened fire, muzzle flashes strobing in the dark. Jonas rolled behind a wagon, firing back, each shot echoing off the canyon walls. A torch hit the haystack. Flames leapt skyward. The ranch turned to fire, the smoke painting the stars red. Mae tore a board loose from the fence and swung it like a club, knocking one man clean off his horse. Another charged, knife drawn. She caught his arm, twisted, bone cracked like dry wood. Jonas's rifle clicked empty. He drew his revolver, panting, sweat, and smoke stinging his eyes. Mae! She turned just as Colt lunged from behind the burning wagon, blade glinting. His face was a mask of rage. He slashed once. She caught his wrist, forcing it back. Their boots dug furrows in the dirt. The fire roared around them, shadows leaping on the walls. Always said you were too strong for your own good, Colt hissed. Mae's voice was low, shaking with fury. You never did know strength. She lifted him, all of him, with both hands and hurled him into the wagon fire. The flames swallowed the scream. Silence fell, broken only by the crackle of burning wood and the hiss of cooling iron. Jonas stood beside her, chest heaving. It's over, he said. Mae didn't answer. The red sky flickered across her face as she watched the fire burn down to coals. The storyteller's voice came soft as ash. Smoke drifted low across the canyon floor, turning the sunrise the color of rust. The town was silent, except for the pop and sigh of cooling timber. Mae stood in the center of what was left of the corral, ash clinging to her sleeves, hair loose and tangled in the dawn wind. Behind her, the last embers of the wagon fire hissed in the dirt. Jonas was beside her, rifle resting across his arm, eyes hollow but steady. From the ridge came the sound of boots, cautious steps, hesitant breaths. The townsfolk crept down, wide-eyed and whispering. That her, someone said. She did all that herself? No, another muttered. The quiet man helped her. The rancher and the giant bride. Mae turned toward them. For a heartbeat, no one dared speak. Then a small boy stepped forward, holding his hat to his chest. Ma'am, he said, voice shaking, you saved us. Mae looked at him, at the smoldering wreckage, at the faint outline of the gang's bodies where the fire had been. She said nothing. Jonas touched her shoulder. You didn't have to stand alone, he said quietly. She looked down at him, her expression unreadable. Didn't think anyone would stand with me. Jonas smiled, faint but sure. Wasn't standing with you, Mae. Was standing beside my wife. The boy grinned. A few men nodded. Then, slowly, like dawn warming the land, the town began to breathe again. Women brought buckets of water. Men set posts upright. Someone started humming an old hymn. Mae walked toward the well, the wind tugging her coat. She drew water, poured it over the smoking ground. The dust rose in tiny clouds that caught the light like fireflies. Jonas came to her side, hat in hand. "What now?" he asked. She stared north, where the mesas glowed gold against the early sun. "Start over," she said. "Somewhere quiet." He nodded. "Long ride. I can walk." She said it plain, without pride or humor, just truth. He chuckled softly. "Reckon I'll ride slow then." They left Whisper Canyon that afternoon. The townsfolk watched until the pair were only two silhouettes against the horizon. One small, one tall, both steady. Years later, travelers passing through would find a marker near the canyon rim. Jonas and Mae Reed. Together they stood tall. The storyteller's voice settles low, the sound of a match striking, a pipe lit, and smoke curling up through lamplight.